I think that leadership generally has declined over the last 50 years. And I'm 50. I don't really have an accurate perception really for the last literally 50 years. But I do recall that whether or not leadership has declined, but certainly the examples we have are getting more and more difficult to follow. For example, there was a time when leaders were respected and there was a certain respect for the presidency. And I think that as a result of our partisanship, the respect for the presidency has gone down considerably. In fact, all public figures, members of Congress have the all-time low public opinion ratings. Even the Supreme Court now, the justices of the Supreme Court who were in the very, very front of people's opinions of who were ethical and who were trying to do the right thing, their reputation has taken a great hit because of some of the partisanship and politics that have been going on. And then you see businesses too, as we become more of a consumer society. I think that business leaders also become public figures and they tend to pander more, or they do more things to try and maybe perhaps elevate themselves or elevate profit in the short term instead of trying to do long-term responsible actions that may promote society. Now, I'm not someone who's always like, yesterday was better than today. I'm definitely not somebody who thinks that it was always better before. But at the same time, I do see that we are straining more and more for quality leadership. And then on top of that, I do feel like our society has gotten to the point where we like to take down the big guys, right? We really enjoy somebody falling story. And we've seen this over and over again. You have people who they're defined by their one mistake, right? So they have one thing where they make a mistake and that becomes, and I'm not trying to say that Me Too is bad or anything, because obviously people should be accountable for their actions, but at the same time, many times we're defining leaders by their mistakes instead of the great accomplishments. It is extremely difficult to lead effectively and responsibly. It gets harder and harder the larger your organization and the larger responsibilities you have. And it becomes more and more difficult because we have cell phones and immediate Twitter and all this stuff where it becomes just, there's an immediate backlash if you say something that you say something that's mistaken, or you say something off the cuff, you don't think it through, you're having a reaction to something, it's taken out of context, and then all of a sudden you're defined by that moment. So it's very challenging to have role models who are great leaders. And I think it's becoming more challenging. We have to carve our own way now because there's really nobody to look up to these days as far as leaders go. You look at Elon Musk, for example, he's great at provoking our imagination for what we can achieve as a society. But at the same time, some of the stuff he says is just nuts. And I think he likes that. I think he wants to provoke kind of reactions like that. And I don't think that's responsible for leaders. On the one hand, we have to struggle more as leaders to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And we also have to be aware that could be lost very quickly with a moment misstep or a moment misstatement or something you just did wrong that you should have done. A lot of, for example, in the church communities, pastors step out on their wives or they have money issues or something like that happen. So it's so easy to wreck a lifetime of achievement with just one misstep. So we've got to be really cautious these days because there's almost immediate accountability and it can make it very difficult to build something that lasts. You have these kind of a bifurcation or this bipolar. You have leaders who are, the quick and easy leaders, and then you have the guys who are responsible, accountable to a board. I would say that we're all accountable to somebody. First of all, even the people who are I don't want to say get rich quick, but certainly the people who are the influencers and us, they're accountable to their audience. Now, their content is not accountable to results. And this is the thing that bothers me about what we have with it's called an Instagram culture, for example, is that we've got a lot of people putting out a lot of content that may or may not be true. I watch a lot of influencers and I think that isn't true in business at all. And they're people who are reputed as amazing business people, but they've become famous for being famous, right? And so they have not tested their business principles and they have wealth for sure, but their wealth is from basically being an influencer, not actually building something or helping people or providing a service, right? Besides the service of just the content creation for Instagram. Nowadays, businesses aren't always held accountable for profits. There's so many other things that go into a board of directors. So to answer the issue is that we are all accountable to someone. And so how do we stay in our integrity with that? We have to know what we stand for, and we have to make sure that everyone else knows what we stand for. So when people are holding us accountable, then they know what they're holding us accountable to, if that makes sense. So if you come in and say, listen, we're a Christian business or a faith-based business, or we have these principles where we're committed to serving society, when somebody comes and invests, they know what they're going to get as an investor in your organization because you've made your principles very clear. right? This is what our values are. And when you speak those values, then you have to make sure that all of your actions align with those values. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling accountability where you say what you are and you do what you say. And that's basically what keeps you on track. How do we avoid the temptation of the quick and easy route, which I think is suggested by our culture today? Is so many people want immediate and overnight results. And I'm here to say there is no quick and easy way to success. Even the guys who look like they're quick and easy and who do it overnight, the guys who build some kind of lasting success or have a true foundation for their business, they'll joke and say, this was an overnight success story that took 20 years. And the same thing with my business, right? And the same thing with my business is people were like, oh, it happened so fast. Now, the truth is, I had 20 years of failures and shortcomings and issues. And then you learn and you learn. And then all of a sudden, bam, you get the idea, you can scale it, but it's all the mistakes that you're avoiding on the path going forward that you already learned how to deal with in the past. How do you stay in integrity? You talk what your values are, and you make sure that you surround yourself with people who will remind you of what those values are. You make sure your customers know what your values are, and that your service to your clients is the most important thing. And then you reinforce those values on a daily basis. When you're confronted with the shortcut, that's not the way to go. You want to be efficient, but you don't want to take a shortcut. So it's important that you speak your values into your business every day, and you have it written on your heart, so to speak, and you live those out in everything that you do. So when starting out in a business, there will be a lot of challenges, right? And many times those challenges will exceed your abilities at the time. And you have to early on pick a path. You can pick the path to say, hey, I don't know what the answer to this question is, and I may need to get help and find some people who can help me with this. Or you can take the other path of lying about what you know. And I've seen businesses that have gone down that path. For example, I know a guy, I had hired him, and then I found out his backstory where his first client, he had hired a bunch of people to come and sit in an office to make it look like he had a big company. And then the client hired him and thinking that was his team, and it wasn't his team. And then he hired the team with the money the guy had paid him. To me, that is always going to come back and bite you, because if you're going to take that shortcut at the beginning, you're going to always take shortcuts and you're not going to deliver. And I've seen this person go on to do some things that I thought were questionable. And so I just got away from that person and as a vendor. And surprisingly, they'll brag about it as in one of their early stories is, this is how I got my business going. I would never brag about that. To me, that's embarrassing. When my wife and I, we started our business with a fold-out table, a laptop computer, and a chair in an interior office. And I never lied to any clients about what we were. I had many years of experience as a lawyer, but I never would exaggerate or lie or anything. I never talked about the number of employees we had. What I did at that time was I said, hey, listen, you're going to get my service because you're my first client. Now, I don't know if I told the first person they were the first client, but I would say I've got 20 clients maybe. You're going to get the service of someone who puts all of their time into your business. And we were proud of that. And now we have thousands of clients. And we make sure that, my job is making sure that my people provide my clients the best service they possibly can, the level of service that I would provide. But I don't lie about it. Now, I'm not directly working on these cases unless there's something I need to work on specifically. And so I think it's important. You're going to make early decisions about whether you're going to skirt the truth or not. So you've got to remind yourself every day that you want to do the right thing. And because I'm a spiritual person, I believe that God rewards that. My wife and I have had a level of success and a track of growth that has been really almost unrivaled in the country because we've chosen to do the right thing and make the hard call. But ultimately, that's the better call. And it establishes a foundation where people know what we say. And our top employees and our top clients, everyone comes to us and says, I know what I get when I'm talking to you. And I know you've done it the right way because they've seen us behind the scenes making the right call, making the tough call. And that's worked out really well for us. So once you make a decision about something like this, it's going to be a path you're going to take. And so you've got to learn to make the tough call and do the right thing because it's easy to go the other way and the quick fix, and it never works in the long run.